Hello, crime fighters. I'm Ray the DA, and this is Straight Talk. Well, every day we are bombarded with news of violence and property crimes. People are becoming frightened and wonder what in the world is our government going to do to deal with the hoodlums that are causing all of this concern and fear. I'm reminded of that famous statement: those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. In the 1960s, America's crime rate soared because we just quit sending criminals to prison. Law-abiding citizens became afraid and spoke out, and legislatures responded with tough sentencing laws. Well, it took law enforcement 40 years of putting violent and repeat offenders back into prison to finally bring the crime rate back down. Then finally, in 2007, Lexington achieved its lowest crime rate in 33 years. Then our governor and our lawmakers heard the shouts of the soft-on-crime crowd. They said, "We're incarcerating too many convicted criminals, and some meaningful reduction in the prison population would and should begin to sound the warning that there are limits beyond which the state should not go in its efforts to protect the public against crime." Think about that. Efforts beyond which the state should not go to protect the public from criminals. Well, they forgot that the law-abiding public is entitled to be protected from those who choose to break the law. And sure enough, they began the early release of prison inmates. They passed criminal-friendly laws designed to keep criminals from being sent to prison in the first place. They call their criminal-friendly laws being smart on crime, they say. That new plan, like the plan in 1960, was essentially to quit sending so many convicted criminals to prison. So our question is, why must our leaders and elected lawmakers continue to repeat the mistakes of our path? We are in Kentucky are going down that same path and are repeating those same dangerous and costly mistakes we made in the 1960s. All because we didn't either learn the lesson then, or our current lawmakers and criminal justice policymakers just don't think the safety and security of our citizens is a top priority. The assassination of the prison director in Colorado and prosecutors in Texas has captured the attention of the public and has served as a grisly reminder that criminals are criminals. They're dangerous, and the public's entitled to be protected from them. And how do we do that? We lock them up. That's how. At least we used to lock them up, but in the past few years, not so much. You see, during recent years, the soft-on-crime crowd has prevailed in legislatures, and sending criminals to jail is the exception and not the rule. Why don't we ever learn the first time? Why do we have to make the same mistakes over and over, for which our innocent citizens must often pay a high and often deadly price? The latest mistake we are repeating is how we deal with crime or criminals, or more accurately is how we don't deal with crime and criminals. In November 1993, Mortimer Zuckermore, editor-in-chief of U.S. News and Report, asked in an editorial what to do about crime. Now, Zuckerman is no conservative by any stretch, but he was very concerned about crime and the safety and security of our citizens back in 1993. His words are scary as we see the same things which caused his concern then repeating themselves now, 20 years later. Let me share some of Zuckerman's thoughts and concerns 20 years ago. He said, "Life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness, and the first of these is life. You see, without physical security, the rest is meaningless. We all used to take for granted that we could be safe and secure in our homes. Now, with home invasion, safety and security and fear are the concerns of a growing number of our citizens. National statistics were trotted out back then, and today again by the likes of the Pew Foundation and their worshipers in the legislatures and newspapers across the country suggest a moderate decline in crime. But a significant majority of our citizens disagree. They're afraid. They believe crime and safety and the security of the public is most important, or at least a very important issue. Unfortunately, these days, with what is going on in our country, the outrageous has become ordinary. The obscene is so common it's considered normal. Remember that statement that is better than that 1,000 guilty men go free than that an innocent man is convicted? These days, the cynical response of crime victims to that statement is, better for whom? Guilty go free? Free? Often just to commit new crimes? It is well established that serial criminals or repeat offenders are responsible for committing most of the crime in our cities. 20 years ago, just like today, the police, the prosecutors, and the citizens were confused and disillusioned and dismayed by the criminal-friendly laws passed then and passed now by our legislature and by judges whose sentences trivialize the crimes and probate and release known criminals. You know, our citizens are almost as shocked by the kid glove way that convicted criminals are treated in court as they are about the crime itself. Of course, incarcerating these habitual criminals has a cost, but the cost of not locking them up is much higher, both financially and personally. After all, that is what our tax-paying public believes that they are paying taxes for. Surprise, our elected leaders have let us down. That's what he said 20 years ago. Those words applied then, and they still do today. I'm Ray, the DA, and this is Straight Talk.